Welcome back, friends. And we have now entered that weird time between the regular season and the bowl game. We have no idea what that bowl game is going to be yet. We've got some assumptions, but I do want to let you know what's going on MGoBlue Podcast this week and a little bit of our plan moving forward. Obviously, as you can see, we are live here on Michigan Athletics YouTube page. You may actually be watching on my Twitter account. Thank you. But already out on MGoBlue Podcast is the Inside Michigan Basketball, the maiden voyage of that show throughout the course of this week. And we'll get Brian Bush's take on that one because there's been some great Michigan basketball, both men's and women's. And Dusty May and Kim Barnes-Arico both made their presence known on that show. Still to come this week, we've got a couple of episodes of Conquering Heroes. Thursday, Brandon Dorado, the number one team in all the land for the Michigan hockey program. He's going to join me on Thursday. Ward Manuel will join me on a special edition on Friday as well. Defend the Block on Saturday night. This one is going to be following the home game against Rutgers. And I believe, if I'm not correct, you will correct me, the first Big Ten game of the season. So Michigan basketball, obviously, we beat the hell out of Auburn and Gonzaga. All of them thought they were ranked teams, yet they had a chance to go against what is now the number 3 team in the country in Michigan basketball. Came away losers, and we will also hopefully have some National Signing Day information for you. Believe I'll be joined by Sharon Moore. National Signing Day is tomorrow. And we'll see how all of that goes as to when that edition is going to come out, all that information. But I've been singing the praises of Michigan basketball so far today. And Brian, you were there. Mr. Brian Bush joins us again today. The voice of Michigan basketball. It had to be fun. Those couple of games against Auburn, who was, a top 25 team.
Yep.
And then Gonzaga, who was 16 or 15 at the time.
Keyword.
Was. Yes.
No, just an absolute blast all week long. The fact that they were just so consistent, the number that I continue to go back to from what the men's team did in Las Vegas, the highest score in a game individually was 20 total. That was Yaxel Lendeborg in that Wednesday win over Gonzaga. A super fun team. Definitely encourage you to come on out to Chrysler if you can. The other thing is, if you're watching on YouTube, make it a point. Every home win this regular season, we're going to have a special stream on the Michigan Athletics YouTube channel. We're going to incorporate some alumni guests, and this Saturday we're scheduled to be joined postgame by Daniel Horton. Oh, he used to be a Bucket back in the day. Excited to get his perspective on this team, on hopefully that big win for Michigan against Rutgers coming up on Saturday. And then, John, for the rest of kind of what we're planning for the rest of December, Conquering Heroes, we got 2 great guests for you this week in Coach Narado and then Ward Manuel. We'll see exactly how we kind of deplane down the stretch in December, hoping for at least one more Conquering Heroes after that. But obviously, this is a little bit of a downtime for all things non-basketball. But we're here for football, and I want to touch on something you said at the very top. Welcome back, friends. Because if you are with us today, you are our friends. Because we need to relax. We need to bounce back. We need to maybe vent a little bit.
Relax.
Because I know, maybe that wasn't.
There is no relax.
I know.
There's always what is next.
I don't know. We were joking before the show. You're rocking the shirt as if it's like 70 degrees outside. It is not.
It is not.
No.
It's also not that cold.
No, it's not. It'll get colder. We're still in the fall.
Very hardy stock.
But we are here to try to talk through it, right? And that's the goal of this episode of In the Trenches. So let's start just with now. We've had a few days to think it over, reflect, not relax. What are your biggest takeaways from the loss to Ohio State?
Well, it hurts. And that hurt, which is something that you and I have experienced. None of these players on the roster have experienced that. So they're working their way through it right now. A lot of fans have forgotten what this feels like because we haven't lost to Ohio State since 2019. So it's a challenge, and there's a lot of things that you got to look at. You got to look at the game. You got to look at the entire season, and you got to look at the roster. You got to look at the guys that are coming back that you anticipate will come back. And I know Sharon is going through all those meetings right now. But it's a game that you knew coming in, as did everybody else, including Vegas. Michigan was a heavy underdog. And we've seen time and time again, Michigan be an underdog in this game, find ways to be competitive, find ways to win. And it really didn't feel like much after the first quarter, like that competition was there.
So number two, along those lines, there's a lot to glean, a lot to take from, and we're going to learn what this roster looks like. We'll learn a lot more officially on signing day coming up later this week. But what are the lessons Michigan can take into next week, next month, next year? Because the one aspect that I think is at least helpful from a measuring stick standpoint is that if and when Michigan catches Ohio State again, and hopefully that's next year in Columbus, they will almost certainly be right back where they want to be, and that's in the national championship conversation, because Ohio State's number one in the country. They're 12-0, and they are going to be almost certainly if not the favorite in the CFP.
So in regards to, the next week, right? It's how many guys can we get healthy so that they can participate in bowl practice? We all know we're going bowling. We just don't know where yet. We'll find out on Sunday. And so for this week, it's about healing up some of those bumps and bruises, recovering from the game, recovering from the season, trying to get as many guys back that can practice as possible. The next month, it's gonna really be a lot of evaluation, and then evaluating what you did throughout the course of 12 games, obviously highlighted by what you did against Ohio State, and then figuring out in preparation for whoever that bowl opponent is. And it doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter where it is. It's trying to zero in on some of those things in bowl practice that are going to help you prepare for spring ball and for next year. And again, we don't know on this roster how many of the guys that are graduating or have the ability to leave for the NFL, how many of those guys will actually be playing in the game. Once you figure out who this roster is going to be, now you're starting to put together and take a look at, okay, who do we want to take a look at? Who do we want to see? Who's earned the right to be on the field in the bowl game? And there's going to be a lot of evaluation of every single player. There's going to be a lot of evaluation of the coaching staff. Sharon is going through those evaluations right now. Who did a good job? Who needs to do better? What do we need to do better in developing our players? Offensive, defensive schemes, special teams surely will be a large part of that evaluation. All of those things will be going on in bowl prep and obviously after the bowl game is over. And then it's going to be a matter of roster construction. We have no idea. Well, we have a bit of an idea of what the recruiting class will look like. We'll discuss that later in the week. But once those guys are signed, who's going to be the early enrollees? Some of those guys may actually go on the bowl trip with us. So this is just a season of a lot of moving parts, trying to figure out who's going to play in the bowl game, who do we want to see in the bowl game, and then who's going to be on that trip. What are some of the changes that have to happen? Because there'll be some players are evaluating their situation right now as well, and it's a conversation that we didn't have to have 5 years ago, but you got to have now of those guys that maybe they think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence anywhere else in college football. Finding out, are some of those guys going to be able to be convinced to stay? Do you want some of those guys to stay, or are you okay with some of them leaving? All of those conversations are legitimate conversations that you're going to have right now. And if you make that commitment that you're going to be here, continuing to move forward, then it's all in, and it's trying to figure out, how do we win the bowl game? How do we prepare ourselves now in the coming months, the off-season program, which will also be evaluated. Everything in the program, when you are, even if you win a national championship, you're evaluating everything because you want to try and tweak things to be better. And when you have a season where you don't have the results that you wanted, obviously there needs to be some changes, some tweaks in the process that is going to start now, not just waiting for the bowl game to be over.
So number 3 on our 7 from 77, for those players who have eligibility remaining in the college ranks and then who decide to stay, the motivational factor of that loss, of falling to Ohio State. We all know about what's all over Schembechler Hall. What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? Not just losing, but how it happened, right? Ohio State had some drives that looked eerily similar to what Michigan had done in this game over the previous 4 years. It's got to be just begging to come out in terms of that motivation.
It is. I mean, the motivation is certainly there. And you look at, okay, well, you beat Michigan State, which this year doesn't mean a whole lot, but you lost to your other rival in Ohio State. You came up short. You're not playing in Indianapolis for a Big Ten championship, and there's no path to the college football playoff. So you take all of that, and if you're going to be a senior next year, or it's, how do we say it, the last year of your college eligibility, certainly there's motivation to make sure that you end up accomplishing all of those goals next year. How do you do that? One, you have to look internally. Then you look at your position group. You look at your side of the ball, and then you've got to find a way to motivate those guys and bring along everyone else, including the incoming freshmen that may be factors in, who's going to be productive next year on the field. So, and you look at next year's schedule. You start to look at some of the film. There's going to be changes, obviously, around the Big Ten, but we went into the season thinking, hey, there's going to be a change in Oklahoma. I don't think so. I think Brent Venables has probably secured his coaching position at least for another year. So you take a look at that Oklahoma game. It was there this year. It's going to be in Ann Arbor. Some of those players will be back. If you're a guy going against anybody that's going to be returning, you start to build the book. I always call it building a book on your opponent. What went well this year? What didn't go well? And what do I need to improve upon? What are some of the things that my opponent is doing? It's not the first game next year, so you'll be able to add some chapters to that book in week one of evaluation. So you start building a base of knowledge, and it's going to be as simple as, are we developing, from a coach's perspective, are we developing our players to the point that you are getting better still from week 1 to week 12, or week 13, 14, whatever it ends up being, but game 12. All of those evaluations go into the motivation that it's going to take to get to where you want to be, and that's ultimately beating Ohio State, and that's the last win that you need to get to Indianapolis.
And we will talk plenty about the schedule for Michigan, but 8 home games next year, not a ton of gimmies by any stretch. You host Oklahoma, Indiana, Iowa, rivalry game against Michigan State. We'll talk about their head coach hire here momentarily. Penn State, we'll see what they do. And the last game of the year is at Ohio State. So Michigan will start with 8 home games in 11 games. There's only 1 bye week. So nice to be at home, but there's some real challenges there. This schedule this year, if you take out the travel aspect, was easier on paper than what this one looks to be right now.
Sure. And I mean, okay, you look at what Michigan did this year, right? The games, quote unquote, that you're favored in, you won.
Yep.
The 3 that you weren't, you lost. Now you're going to be looking at next year. Obviously, it depends on what happens with the roster at Indiana and the roster and coach at Penn State. Michigan State, we know Pat Fitzgerald, but what does he do in the transfer portal? What does he do with that roster? There's a lot of question marks, and the schedule is going to be tougher. So you're going to have to find ways of not just beating the teams you're supposed to beat, but can you compete with all those other teams? You're going to have to win a majority of those games, if not all of them, to attain your goal.
So number 4 on our 7 from 77. I will preface this. This is not an excuse. This is not me saying that Michigan would have beaten Ohio State if these guys were playing, but Michigan did have to go deep into its depth. No Justice Haynes, Ernest Hausman, Rod Moore, Max Bredesen was in uniform but never went out there on the field. Then the Jordan Marshall injury early on after he had broken off a few runs. You always talk about, John, the expectation is the position, and Michigan, I think, did a decent job of that up to the Ohio State game, but that's something that no doubt will have to be on the minds, because you can't just say, hey, fingers crossed, hope for no injuries. Injuries are going to happen. How can Michigan adjust and get deeper? Feels like they were deep in some positions, but not enough.
Yeah, and you talk about Ernie Hausman not being there. Obviously, you want him to be out there. He's a tremendous player and a tremendous leader. He's a captain. But that was a position where I felt like, hey, you were deep enough and that talent was good enough to be able to overcome that. Max Bredesen, in terms of talent, Jalen Hoffman, I thought did a fine job. But in terms of leadership, that's where you really lost out on having Max. And I know he was on the sidelines, but it's different being on the field. Rod Moore, kind of were most of the season without him anyway. And so the presence in the meeting rooms, all that stuff was the same as it was last year. And then Jordan Marshall, that was a tough one. That was a really tough one because of he was the second play of the game. He rips off 36 yards. Second play of the next drive, he rips off 21 yards. And so, yeah, you missed out on having some of those guys there. But the fact of the matter was you had enough depth at those positions to be able to overcome that. It wasn't that, as you, and I'm not saying it, you were saying that. The disclaimer was there. It's not an excuse. But you're going to have to find ways, because every single year you're going to have injuries. And you never know who they are, and it's going to happen to a key player, but you've got to have guys behind that are ready to go. And I think one of the things I'm really excited about is receiver has kind of been a liability over a number of years for Michigan. And I like the fact that you had a great connection between Bryce Underwood and Andrew Marsh. And what I saw at practice, we never really got that chance. I talked about it throughout the course of the season. I thought Jamar Browder was going to be that guy that came on by the end of the year. But I do like some of the talent that you have there. This is where the evaluation, the motivation for the coaches and players and everything comes to fruition is, okay, so you're starting to build some talent there. But what happens if Andrew Marsh has to miss a game next year? And what is he going to be your returner? Who's your backup returner? Who is your backup wide receiver one? That's where I think you're going to still have to, explore the portal for depth at receiver, depth at a number of different positions, and maybe some top end talent at some positions. So, it's the opportunity is all right there. And here's, I think, one of the best things that Michigan has going is stability. With so many college football coaches being fired this year at top programs, those rosters are all kind of up in arms right now. Are we going to stay? This isn't the coach I committed to. So there's going to be a lot of talent in the transfer portal. Can Michigan, being one of the more stable programs and having the promise of, young talent, being 9-3, improved over last year, taking that step forward, how can Sharon, how can this coaching staff sell the Michigan program to that top end talent, along with securing a top-rated, recruiting class?
We'll continue our 7 from 77 here momentarily, but first, a word from our friends at Founders Brewing Company. Maybe you use Founders to relax a little bit the last few days.
Take the edge off. Founders Brewing Company has been brewing high-quality, highly rated beers like All Day IPA, Michigan Pilsner, and their new Mortal Bloom right here in the great state of Michigan for over 25 years. As a proud sponsor of Michigan Athletics, they're here to help you celebrate every Wolverine win with the perfect beer in hand. And maybe get over a loss with that perfect beer as well. Whether you're at the game, tailgating, or watching from home, there's nothing like enjoying a Michigan-made beer from Founders. Learn more about their community involvement and where to find your go-to game day beer at foundersbrewing.com.
All right, number 5 on our 7 from 77. I'm just more curious as you look ahead in the short term. How do you watch this game? When do you watch this game? How do you study the film? It's got to be a unique challenge. It's one thing, I'm sure that the USC film you're looking at right away because Michigan got into playoff mode and they needed to get into playoff mode. Their season was on the line every single game. But there's a finality to this that, let's face it, Michigan hasn't experienced in quite some time. How do you do it?
You got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I doubt there were a lot of guys, maybe even the coaches, that didn't watch this game on Sunday. But here we sit on Tuesday, and unless you're a guy that was your last game and you're not playing in the bowl game, you might not watch this game. Every single other player, coach, anybody that is involved with this program should have watched it already. And it's a painful experience. I only lost one Ohio State game. That was my last one. And at that time, nobody was sitting out bowl games. So we knew we had to prepare for the bowl game. We still had things that we had to fix, but you've got to watch it. And that goes into part of the motivation. You watch this one and you watch it over and over. And every single time you sit down and it used to be you put a cassette in and now you pull it up on your computer. It should be painful. It should hurt. And whether you watch this one, 100 times, I would suggest you watch this one right before you're starting a new phase of the offseason program. Watch it a couple of times now as you prepare for bowl practice, and then you put it to bed for a little bit. It's always back in your mind, but then you watch it before you start winter conditioning, and it should motivate you, knowing that this is what you put on the field, what you put on film, what happened in the big house, and then you watch it right before spring ball. You watch it again as soon as spring ball is over, and you start to look at that point, okay, what did I do in spring ball? As you got that film, compare it to what you saw at the end of the season. How much better am I? How much better is my position group, the side of the ball that I'm on? What are we as a team? And so you got to use it for motivation throughout the course of the year. And obviously, once before you go to training camp, watch it again. It's going to hurt, as it should. Nothing will ever be comfortable about this. And individually, when you're watching the film, you sit there and you grade yourself. You should grade yourself harder than any coach. If the coach comes and says, hey, you got a C+ grade in this game, well, you should look at your paper and say, well, I graded out as C-, like, or a D+, like whatever it is. You should be grading yourself at a much tougher standard, because you're the one that's out there. You know what was going on at that time, what was going through your thoughts and your mind, and why did I take this step? What was it? Was I just not comfortable with the play? And write down all of these questions so that you can go back and look at it and say, when you get to next year's Ohio State game, hey, when we ran this outside zone, I didn't understand this defense or the look that I was getting. And make sure between now and then that question is answered so that you have that answer ready to go at that time. Every single thing that happened on the field should be scrutinized, even the good things. Okay, what worked? Wasn't a lot of it, but what did work? What was the cause of those 36 and 21-yard runs? What was Zeke Berry? What was he doing on play number 1 that allowed him to be in position to bat away that ball? Jair Hill on play 2, that interception. Like, what were the things, even not just what was going there, but what caused Julian Sayin to throw that ball? Was there pressure? All of those different things have to be, scrutinized. And, that book for just this game should be a thick book of questions and answers, so that when you get to next season, because you're going to see some of those things, same things against Oklahoma, against Penn State, against Michigan State, and then certainly against Ohio State at the end of the year. If you don't have answers to them, then you're doing yourself and your team a disservice.
Number 6 on our 7 from 77. We will learn Michigan's bowl assignment coming up on Sunday afternoon. What can Michigan accomplish, maybe salvage is the better word, to set up for 2026? How can they utilize these next few weeks, these bowl practices, to set the tone for 26?
Well, I mean, what did we learn last year against Alabama? And fortunately for us, Alabama was playing most of their starters in that game. There was some momentum going into the offseason with the win against Ohio State, the win against Alabama. You started to feel a little bit of momentum. Now, we didn't capitalize on that for what we did this year, but it's, when you think about this game, and I've said this a number of times, it's a glorified spring game, right? The meaning of the bowl games, which drives me nuts, but the meaning of the games aren't what they used to be. And so you're not in a college football playoff game. It's as a one and done situation. And last year against Alabama, we mentioned it. It was 10 of the 11 starters on defense were going to be back. And what does that team look like? We got a chance to see Andrew Sprague start his first game against Alabama, and he started every single game this year. And I think he'll look back and say, okay, what am I as a player after 12 games versus what I did against Alabama? You're starting to look at different things, and we should see a big jump from this offense. You're still going to have Andrew Marsh at wide receiver for this bowl game. You're going to have Bryce Underwood as your quarterback for this bowl game. Your entire line, save maybe Kripp, I think he'll probably play in this game. All of those guys are going to be there. And as the game goes on, maybe you're starting to look at some different combinations. All of those things that you can accomplish against another opponent, the film that you can get going against another opponent. You try and go good on good in practice, but the intensity, the pressure, all of those things aren't the same as basically a glorified spring game where there's going to be fans and there's going to be an opponent. Now go out there and measure up.
Last one on our 7 from 77. Any opponents you have your eye on? Right now, a lot of the prognostications have Michigan going to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando on December 31st. That would pit the Wolverines against an SEC team, probably one of the ones that are on the outside looking in right now from a college football playoff conversation. I've got to pick. Who would you like to see Michigan play?
I've seen a lot of the projections talk about Texas.
Yeah, I've seen that one a lot.
No,
No, because we played them last year in Ann Arbor. I want to see Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia, he might be going to the Heisman ceremony. They will be motivated. Part of what I thought was valuable about the ReliaQuest Bowl was that Alabama was motivated. I think Vandy would be a heck of a lot more motivated than Texas would in that game. I know it's not the big brand name, but it's not like LSU would be the team. I want to see Michigan play LSU. I don't care if it's here, Death Valley, Cheyenne, Wyoming. I want to see those two teams play. We got Texas a couple times, once already, once coming up in Austin. I want to play a motivated team and one with a pretty darn good quarterback.
You don't think Texas would be motivated?
Not as much as Vanderbilt.
For a team that, so to put Texas in the same category as Michigan. Sure. A team that you felt like maybe underperformed this year. Maybe had the potential was there. And I don't think anybody is looking at Arch Manning as the number 1 overall pick. So he'll be back. He'll be on the field. How does Bryce Underwood match up against on the field? And obviously not going head-to-head, but with Arch Manning. And a team that, a lot of people had picked. I mean, at the beginning of the season, it was number 1 versus number 2. They underperformed. I think this is, and it could be next year, you could be looking at a Michigan-Texas in the postseason if Michigan follows the path that we have mapped out for them, and Texas has follows the map that I'm sure they've mapped out for themselves. So I know we played them last year, and I'm still kind of bugs the hell out of me that we lost to them. We'll have them in a couple of years. I think that would be an exciting matchup.
I can't go wrong with either one of those, but I think it'd be fun to see. Plus, there would be like a 6-year age difference between quarterbacks.
Yes.
That as well.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's probably gonna be an SEC team. It looks like it's gonna be the Citrus Bowl based on prognostications. I just want a team that's going to truly challenge a Michigan roster that's going to look very different. They're going to be opt-outs. They're going to be people who portal. That's the nature and the reality of college football. And who knows? Maybe Vanderbilt finds their way in the playoff. I don't think so, as we'll talk about here. No. But they'd have a chance to win an 11th game, which at Vanderbilt, they're already in uncharted territory. That would matter to them. I'll be curious about it. So that's our 7 from 77. No transition, no interview. Again, we're hoping to have something with head coach Sharon Moore later on this week when it comes to National Signing Day. Always impressive. Want to get to a few of the comments along the live stream here. 2 from the same person. I think we can grow our team and become more experienced. I think this was an issue for us. We don't see that with Ohio, who communicate on defense. Did you have any issues with Michigan's defensive communication or what that comment has its spirits in?
Well, on the 50-yard touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith, there was obviously a miscommunication. Can't have those, especially against a player like that. He's going to be back next year. I think there were times where I did feel like they weren't all on the same page. Maybe the front end wasn't connected to the back end. So I do think, communication was an issue. I think communication was an issue really in all phases. There were times where I felt like, I think it was Bryson Cusdahl, had taken a snap and was trying to get up inside where the offensive line was blocking something a little bit wider. So, communication, I think, is going to be something that this team needs to continue to focus on as they prepare for the bowl game.
5 minutes into the first quarter, the Michigan head coach looked defeated and not confident in his team's chances. I didn't see that. I think where confidence waned was in the fact that Michigan got Ohio State offensively into third down spots, and Michigan's defense just could not quite get off the field. And that felt like that just has it has a stacking effect in a way that really makes it tough, especially against a team as dynamic as that one.
Well, and confidence started to wane as well. And I wasn't on the field, so I don't know what it felt like down there. Jason Avant could tell us better. But when you rip off a 36-yard run, you get down in close to the red zone, and you can't get a touchdown. You settle for 3. All right, hey, you draw first blood, things are fine, right? And then you turn around, and on play 2, you get an interception. You're already in field goal range, yet you can't find a way to put it in the end zone. You settle for another field goal. That's where some of the frustration started to pick up. Hey, we got to be able to score touchdowns, because then Ohio State starts scoring touchdowns. They kick a field goal, you go into the half 17-9, again settling for another long field goal. I think I was frustrated because of the missed opportunities, but I felt going into halftime 1 score, okay, hey, you come out, you force a punt, which the defense did, but offensively you never had anything going.
Are there expectations for Marlon Klein and Jimmy Rolder to return? Marlon does have a year of eligibility definitely left because he played only a couple games in his freshman year. Jimmy Roller might be a little bit more challenging because he's played, I think 6 was his minimum in the national championship season. So there might be something there. I mean, Jimmy Roller put enough on tape where maybe he can get a look in the NFL. Talking with Wink Martindale, there's a lot of confidence there. The reality is, I kind of wanted to bring this up as the broad question of there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of discussions around what this roster will look like, how things will divvy out. We've got the new location in the portal from a calendar standpoint. When that happens, there'll be coaching changes in terms of the college football landscape. Any prognostication on what Michigan's roster looks like right now and what individual decisions take place, it's just December when you're not in the playoff, and sometimes when you are in the playoff, it's not the time to really try to put that in anything other than the easiest as possible to erase pencil.
Right. And I mean, so if you're just taking a look at those two guys, Jimmy Roller is going to be playing on Sundays. I think he takes that opportunity and goes and plays on Sundays. Marlon Klein, a little bit of a different situation there. I don't know that yet he is a guy that's going to be playing on Sunday. He might be on a practice squad. If he's got the chance to come back, does he want to? With the depth at that position and incoming recruits, and this is the tough conversation, even though he's a captain, does Michigan want that for the program next year? Again, I don't make those decisions or those evaluations. So those are all some of the things that work into, constructing this roster moving forward.
We'll take some more comments and questions as we move forward, but did want to get into, we normally do in the 7 from 77, our other topics around the country. We'll do that here, starting in the Big Ten. Weird to have a 1-2 matchup that has almost certainly Ohio State and Indiana are going to get a bye in the CFP. Probably the impact of a Big Ten championship is greater at Indiana than it is at Ohio State. But the Heisman Trophy is potentially on the line as well. So I know it'll suck seeing the scarlet and gray in there, but it is a pretty fascinating matchup.
It is. And I mean, it may just simply come down to, it'll be whoever wins the Big Ten championship. Whoever wins is going to be the 1 seed. Whoever loses may actually just, if it's Ohio State, stay at 2. If it's Indiana, just stay at 2. And so, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. And, you're talking about, and we obviously had a chance to see Ohio State up close and personal. The Ohio State defense, number 1 scoring defense in the country. They only allowed 7.8 points per game. Indiana, number 2 scoring defense, only allowing just over 10 points a game. Ohio State, number 1, in terms of yards allowed. And it's not even really that close. Indiana was 4, but, the yards allowed by Ohio State. Toledo was 2nd. I don't really count them because of the competition. Sure. But between 1 and 3, which was actually Oregon, talk about the defenses in the Big Ten. Number 1 was Ohio State. Number 3, Oregon. Number 4, Indiana. And then you look at Indiana, number 5 offensive yards per game. Number 2, in terms of points per game, Indiana averages over 44 points a game. I think it's going to be wildly entertaining. What happens? Is it Kirk Cignetti and Mendoza and this offense that is better, or is it Matt Patricia and that stifling defense that ends up winning out? That's really the question for me.
It's okay. My question is, who wins?
Indiana.
Okay.
I think Indiana is, and again, I don't want to take away from, this is not me dogging Ohio State, because even if they lose, they're going to be the number 2 team in the country. I think their offense is more explosive, and I really want to see that group of receivers test Caleb Downs, that group of defensive backs, more so than Jeremiah Smith. And I think the defensive line for Indiana, while you don't have any big name guys, they're very disciplined. They do a tremendous job of pressuring opponents' quarterbacks. I want to see somebody finally get after Julian Saban. We couldn't do it. In fact, we didn't even come close to it. So I want to see what they can do there. And they've got some creative things that Indiana does with their linebackers. Ultimately, I think Indiana does win this game.
Boy, the 4-team model would be fascinating in this landscape, which we'll talk a little bit about, because I think the bye conversation, that number 4 bye, and maybe even number 3 bye, we'll see, has a lot of interesting aspects to it. Oregon finishes off an 11-1 regular season. Their only loss was at home, but it was to Indiana. I think Oregon should have at least a potential conversation about that fourth bye if there's some chaos in front of it. Thoughts on that? And also the coaching carousel where Penn State's not solidified, but Michigan State locking in a coach you've raved about in the past, Pat Fitzgerald.
Yeah, and I love it and I hate it all at the same time. Love it for Pat.
Means it's a good hire for Michigan State.
I mean, if your rivals hate the fact that you hired a good coach, all right, well, mission accomplished.
Yep.
And so Pat Fitzgerald, as we know, is a guy that's going to coach a disciplined football team. They're not going to be a team that beats themselves. Now the question is going to be, and you look at, just offensive line wise. Last 2 years ago, it was Pete Skoronski was a first round pick. They've had other guys that have been first round picks out of the offensive lines that were recruited, coached, and developed by a Pat Fitzgerald team. He's going to do a great job of hiring a staff. He's going to do a really good job of recruiting, developing. The question is, the last time he coached college football, I don't believe the transfer portal, it certainly wasn't what it is now. There was no rev share, NIL, all of that stuff. And I don't know how much that would have really mattered at Northwestern. But at a program like Michigan State, one of the things that we heard about Jay Batt when he was hired as their athletic director is he's a tremendous generator of funds. So if he can raise the appropriate funds, they could get an NIL program up and running to compete with everybody else around the country. I think handing the keys to Pat Fitzgerald, great hire. And like I said, I'm not happy about it from a rival standpoint.
No, tip your cap. That was honestly my prediction when this all happened with James Franklin. I thought he was going to go to Penn State. That's who I thought was going to be the target.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll see. There's some stuff out there about Penn State. We'll talk about it when it's solidified.
The rumors are swirling.
Yes.
Maybe Kalani Sitake
before
from
a
BYU.
big time game. Yeah.
It'll be interesting how he handles it. And we'll compare that to how Lane Kiffin handled it. And I know we're going to talk about him in a moment, but everyone loves to hate on Lane Kiffin. I think it's only those in Baton Rouge or the state of Louisiana right now that like Lane Kiffin. But there's a lot of people around the country that have a lot of respect for Kalani Sitake. If he is offered that opportunity, if he takes it before they are in or out of the college football playoffs, what will he do and what will the response be? Because there was a lot of hate, and I hate how Lane Kiffin went about it.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that. Let's talk national topics because, the Lane Kiffin story has absorbed so much of the conversation, and understandably so. Your takeaways on the hire and how it all transpired.
So Lane Kiffin is a good coach, and he may be the best coach available. I'm not going to sit here and rank the head coaches available. But when you agree to be a coach in college football, you know the calendar and the risks. And when you sit there and you tell, whether it's transfers or it's kids that you're recruiting, hey, I need you here because our goal is to go win a national championship. Now you put your team in position to do that. And instead of following through on that, I'm out, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for your effort. But before we actually accomplish the best thing that we've done at Ole Miss in 70 years, I'm going to jump ship. I know that's the business. It doesn't have to be that way. And I just think it's poor leadership.
I get it for the group of five aspect if you're elevating, and I commend those power conference hires, the schools who have allowed, whether it's North Texas or James Madison, whoever makes it in that playoff spot for the group of five, and as we'll talk about in the ACC, maybe there's two of those group of five teams, they get an opportunity to play in the college football playoff. But I understand that aspect. If you're Lane Kiffin, unless you really do believe, he said it in his press conference, he thinks that the best job in football is the head coach at LSU. Now, do I believe that he in his core 100% believes that? No, probably not.
It's just the best one available now.
Correct. So when you are 11-1 and have, if he stays there, outside of what, Ohio State and Indiana probably, Ole Miss would not be a huge underdog, maybe not an underdog at all to most teams in the playoff. Him getting that team to a national championship would set him up to be a legend there forever. And it's not like very few programs are going to make a 12-team playoff every single year. There will be other big jobs. There'll be other big opportunities. I just the counterintuitive approach of want to make the playoff, want to make history, want to go and win a national championship, and you're there. And from all accounts, the money is the same.
Yeah.
And the investment is the same. 3 of the last 4 LSU coaches have won a national championship. You got a chance to be the guy at Ole Miss to win a national championship.
Yeah, and I hope he gets to be the next Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
At LSU. So I think there's a lot of people rooting against them. There'll be some great moments in college football over the next few years when opponents get a chance to play them.
Ole Miss will be a fan favorite in this.
Yeah.
Pete Golding, their defensive coordinator, seems like a football dude. Good for him.
Yeah.
If you don't have a rooting interest, there's going to be people who gravitate to the Rebels.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, I'll be cheering for the Rebels. They'll be in the college football playoffs, and I hope that for those kids, I don't know any of them, but I hope that they have a great run and possibly win a national title without Lane Kiffin, even though Lane Kiffin's going to get paid for it.
Yeah, what a time to be alive. That is insane. In terms of on the field, so SEC title game, we get these big conferences, and it's still Georgia, Alabama. So there is some, I guess, comfort in the norm in the SEC. That was because Texas, 9-3 Texas, which Steve Sarkisian is saying it would be a blasphemy or something if Texas did not make the CFP at 9-3. I think they got a case, but not the case. But they knocked off Texas A&M, so the Aggies are out of that SEC conversation. Seems like A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma at 10-2. Those 4 teams seem safe. I believe Alabama is safe if they don't get blown out by Georgia, and then Vanderbilt and Texas are in the conversation. You said something to me before the show that I said, John, you bottle that up, my friend. You keep it inside. You think there's an interesting Alabama-Notre Dame conversation in comp to make?
So it'll be interesting to see where – we talked about this on the morning show – if they keep Notre Dame ahead of Alabama. Notre Dame's obviously not playing in a conference championship game because they don't want to be a part of a conference. So they're not at risk. If Alabama, let's just say they lose a nail-biter, BYU beats Texas Tech, what do you do? Because it looks like either Alabama –
So in that spot, you're saying locked in are Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Georgia, A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and then 2 more conference champions.
Yep.
Plus, you would lock in Texas Tech in that spot, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So there'd be 2 spots available.
Right. And so
BYU would claim them.
BYU would claim 1.
Yep.
What happens? Who do you not put in? Notre Dame at 10-2, or what the playoff committee has said before, we're not going to penalize somebody for playing in a championship game, but then you've got a 3-loss Alabama. And let's just say it's a nail-biter. It doesn't have to be a blowout. It's a blowout. I think they make it that conversation goes away. But if Georgia wins, say they win by a field goal at the end, who's in? Notre Dame at 10-2 or Alabama, who played in a conference championship game with 3 losses?
Let me ask you this. Do you think Texas Tech, barring BYU winning by like 40, do you think Texas Tech is safely in?
I think so.
I do too. Their schedule's kind of meh, but they have been dominant.
Well, and it's also they handled BYU the first time. Now,
at BYU.
Right, at BYU. Now at a neutral site, if BYU is able to, rally the troops and win one for Kalani, I don't know how.
Please stay, coach.
Yeah. And BYU. So if BYU loses, right, it makes the whole Kalani Sitake thing an easy decision if he decides and they offer him the job at Penn State. But I think there is a curious question to ask. And if you think Alabama, if they're at risk of losing this game, does the committee tonight say because of their win over Auburn, it's a better win over Auburn than Notre Dame over Stanford? Do they put them ahead tonight in the final, the penultimate, rankings? Because then it would make it easier to bump out Notre Dame.
My question is this, and I'm pulling up Notre Dame's schedule. When it comes to Notre Dame, which if you look at the odds, the betting odds right now, Notre Dame is a heavy favorite to make the playoff. They lost to Miami. It was a close game. It was a great game, but they lost to Miami.
Week 1.
Week 1.
Number
Agreed.
10, Miami.
Agree. And then they lost next week to Texas A&M. Again, great game. By the Miami loss was by 3. A&M was by 1. Are 10 straight wins over Purdue, Arkansas, Boise State, NC State, USC by 10, Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. Is that enough to overcome the head-to-head? Would you put, if it were one spot and the only 2 eligible were Notre Dame or Miami, because their resumes are set. Yes. Those 2. Because it's a fair conversation about where does Alabama fit into this with 3 losses. But I'm saying right now, should we be saying that Notre Dame has that opportunity first, or should we be saying it's Miami?
Okay, so yeah, I understand head-to-head, but that was week 1. That was a loss by 3 points for Notre Dame.
Yep.
And we already, 1 point, 41-40, loss to Texas A&M. But if you're comparing schedules and you look at the 2 losses that that Miami has, and one of them was at home against Louisville, an unranked team, by 3 points.
Yep.
Another one was to Southern Methodist University, SMU, as most people know it. That was at SMU.
In overtime.
Yeah, and it was a 6-point loss. I think the losses for Notre Dame are better than the losses for Miami. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Except for
one loss was.
But that was week 1.
Agreed.
And I think you can make an argument that Notre Dame, as I've always said, you're allowed to get better. Notre Dame improved throughout the course of the year. Now, it's hard to look at it, some of their schedule, whereas did Miami possibly get worse throughout the course of the year?
Yep. Smash the Numbers weighs in. To hell with Notre Dame. Just quoting Bo. That is also a point. So, pretty good point.
Yeah.
I'm
hoping for chaos. I'm hoping that BYU beats Texas Tech. And that
close.
They both get it. Or
close.
It's close, yeah.
Because my opinion is I think Texas Tech, barring a just complete blowout, I think they should be a lock.
I think so as well. And then I'm also hoping for an Alabama loss, because then you've got to figure, okay, does Miami go in over Notre Dame? Does Notre Dame go in over Alabama? Does Alabama go in over both of them at 3 losses? But you're not going to penalize a team for playing in a championship game.
Totally.
Eventually, moving forward, can a team actually say, you know what, we're a 2-loss team, and the odds say we're a lock for the college football playoffs? We're going to sit this championship game out.
Well, I would not be surprised if that were a conversation at some point down the road. I forget who made the point. Some national writer. The first CFP rankings came out after the Tuesday after Miami lost at SMU. And I do wonder if that loss would have happened earlier in the year and it were both Miami and Notre Dame were ascending teams down the stretch, I just was surprised at how far ahead in the rankings. Now, they might be close in terms of the conversations, but this wasn't 10-11 or 11-12 or whatever with Miami and Notre Dame. I think it's really, really an interesting conversation, and it might not play in.
I'm also hoping for Duke to beat Virginia.
Well, okay. So let's talk about that, because if you want to talk, hey, we made fun of divisions, and I'd like to apologize on behalf to the divisions for college football. We're sorry. We're really sorry.
No. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for the way it was, because I'm sorry to divisions now, because we have 18 team bloated conferences. So you get rid of divisions and then you expand the conferences where you actually could utilize divisions.
Yeah.
It's all complete. I mean,
let's just bring in relegation. That's what I would like to do. Let's bring in relegation.
Yeah.
Have two tiers anyways. If Duke beats Virginia, we're going to be debating Duke's resume against the likes of James Madison and North Texas and potentially Boise State. And they went 1-3 in non-conference play. But they would have a win over Virginia. Now, I think Virginia will win. I love Tony Bennett's defense. No, I'm kidding. I think they're going to win. But if they don't, 8-5 Duke in the playoff?
Oh no, it's not happening.
You think they'll go 2 group of 5 leagues?
Oh yeah,
I hope so.
I think
hope
the
so.
Dukes are rooting for Duke.
Oh wow. Oh man.
and yeah, and for a conference that for a while with the 14 playoff was a major factor with Clemson. Clemson now finishes this season 7-5. Lucky to be there. It just I'm hoping for absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Just because I think it'll be very entertaining. And I'll ask you this question: of the teams that we think will be in, and let's just even throw in, okay, Alabama loses, and we have no idea what they'll do with the 3-loss team. Notre Dame, let's just say they're in, and Dukes aren't going to win it. Neither is Duke, and North Texas. They're not going to win it. But of the teams that'll have the potential to be in the college football playoffs, how many actually have a legitimate shot of winning a national title?
I think all 3 of the Big Ten teams do. I think A&M does. I think Georgia does. I don't think Ole Miss does because of what happened. I think Alabama could.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech's the one I'm struggling with because they got some real talent, but I
Texas A&M
probably. I think so.
So
now
my point is college football playoff expansion. Yeah. I think 12 is too many, but 6 or 8 I think is the perfect number. How you construct that would be another matter.
Wow.
But my point is, if Alabama were to lose, I do think they're talented enough and could go on a 3-game run and win a national title. They may not get a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame, I do think Notre Dame is good enough to win a national title this year. They're not the favorite, but if things fall the wrong way, they might be left out. And I do think there are 6 teams, 5 teams that I think could actually win a national title.
Okay. Ohio State,
Indiana, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Alabama.
You think Notre Dame can win?
Yeah.
I did. I don't.
I just said that.
Yeah. Remember, I'd like to go back to so here's
they were actually my preseason one, which is not why I picked it.
Sure.
But if you can control
it wasn't Clemson.
The game, no, that was my morning partner.
Actually, Costa's got some good picks, but he's had some.
He's had some.
He's had better. Yeah, it's okay. Love you, Jim.
But I think if you can, with Jeremiah Love, who's going to obviously be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy, if you can control the game with an explosive player like that and a guy that can just simply get 4 or 5 yards by himself, and the way that their defense is playing right now, I do think that they could, again, not the favorite, but I think they would be one of 5 teams. And my point is, I know that I don't like conference expansion. I don't like a 12-team playoff, but is the system starting to work where instead of just 1 or 2 teams always competing for a national title, you're starting to now have 5 or 6 teams that are competing. And I think in another couple of years, we could make an argument for more that could have a legitimate shot of winning a 3-game season in the postseason.
I just hope that we realize that this creation of going from those 2 to 4 teams, right? When Michigan won the national championship, I really thought all 4 of those teams could have. And we saw it in the semis. Those 2 games were outstanding. If we were to get to a 24-team playoff.
Well, let's not get crazy.
Well, but let's talk about it right now because Michigan would be on the bubble of that. Could you see us getting on here after what we saw on Saturday? And listen, we're Maize and Blue, right? We're on Michigan Athletics YouTube. It'd be so difficult to sit there and go, yes, that Michigan team deserves to be playing for a national championship in December and beyond.
It's the same thing as the 68-team field.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly agree.
Just aren't going to
wholeheartedly agree. And to me, it's not a knock on the 25 team. It is to try to prop up the truly great teams that Michigan has had. That 23 team did not need to win 4 or 5 games to win a national championship after the regular season.
Right.
It needed to face 2 of the best and beat them both. So this is the example where Michigan would be on the bubble in a 24 or one of those play-in games. Michigan would be playing in one of those, potentially at the Big House this Saturday. That's what we're living in right now. And I just, man, 12 feels right because look at the debates we're having.
Well,
I think the 4-team debate would be fascinating right now.
I think 8 feels right.
I actually think 6 is right.
Okay, but we're not going back.
How about 6.4? No, I know we're not. We're never going back,
right?
unfortunately.
And so it's going to be 12 or more. And I just hope that, and I'm glad that they've put off some of that discussion until the new year, until we get a chance to see how this looks, what it feels like, and then you start looking at all of those teams that could possibly be in, Michigan being one of them, but Pitt at 8-3, SMU, Arizona State. I just look at Utah. Like there are some good teams, but I don't know Tulane, Arizona. One of these teams do you think is there value in including in a college football playoff? To your point, Michigan's not going to win a national championship this year if they had a seat in a 2014 playoff.
I think the only way you expand, and this will never happen, is if you literally made it like the NCAA tournament in basketball where every conference had a bid. And I know it's never going to happen, and there are a bunch of teams that don't deserve that opportunity to. Right. It's not that they don't deserve, that they can't win the national championship.
Right. So
but
don't waste our time.
A 16 seed in the NCAA tournament can't win the national. That doesn't mean you can't still have a really cool story with it. My point is the story of an 8-4 SEC team worth jeopardizing what makes the regular season special? And that's why, to me, 12 always felt like it made a lot of sense because it keeps the value. And frankly, I kind of like last year's model. It would make this Big Ten championship game on Saturday feel even bigger if it was for a bye, if it was a playoff win was on the line.
I want to go back to last year's model. I don't like the auto bids.
That's fair.
Or
you don't want Duke playing for a bid? I'm kidding.
No.
I
don't like
I get it. Regardless, I think 12 makes sense because it puts you in position to where you still there are check marks and there are checkpoints that are more impactful. If you're in the top 4, you get a bye. And frankly, I think we should be campus sites until the semis. And then 5 through 8, you get a home game. And then 9 through 12, you're fighting for your chance to get in.
Yeah.
So I like that setup, is what it is. A few comments before we get out of here. John missing out on the coaching paychecks, take a bad job, get fired, still get paid, come back to Brian in 2 years.
Sounds like a great scenario. I'm not going to say I haven't thought about it.
But Penn State is still technically looking.
Yeah.
So they're not a big fan of James Franklin right now.
I fit in well.
You'd have a heck of a cover page.
Yeah, here's my resume.
I want 6 power conferences. This new format is way too much and it waters down the product. I would love to. Yeah. I would love to have found a way to pare it down. Maybe the number's 5. Yes, absolutely. I haven't read this one fully, but no curse words, so we're going with it. Have 2 flex games at the end, no title games, but all the top 16 teams play 2 other top 16 teams, 1 home, 1 away, no rematches, not a playoff per se, then just pick 4 teams. I mean, that's kind of an expanded version of the +1 bowl model that I always thought made sense back then. I think the 4-teamer is still how it's always going to be the best. 6 I can listen to because then there's value of being 1 and 2. I mean, what value did Michigan have in being the 1 seed the year that they had to play Alabama, or the year that there wasn't a big difference between Michigan as a 2 seed versus Alabama the 1? Michigan had to play Georgia. Right. Alabama played Cincinnati. But those teams were very even. So I think it's interesting. You're not gonna get that. Unfortunately, part of it is the bowls' impact on all of this to keep 6 bowl games plus a rotating national championship spot.
Honestly, the only change that I would make at this point is to the calendar. We all know the academic calendar is going to start in the new year. So I think the college football season needs to end as quickly as possible into the new year instead of going all the way to the 19th and it's been as late as the 20th. I think instead of having this gap of we've said goodbye to so many traditions, so let's get rid of the gap that we have between the end of the regular season and when we start playing college football playoff games or the bowls is, hey, as soon as it's done, as soon as championship weekend is over, then you start playing that next week on campus sites. And then the week after that is with the quarterfinals, the semifinals, you get all of it done. And then the first, because NFL will have the first Monday night in the new year. So you play the college football championship on the first Tuesday in the new year. And now all of a sudden you could put rules in place for coaches to say, and then you move the national signing day back to where it was, first Wednesday in February, and now you can have coaching movement at that time. You don't have to put, I know there's some people that in my morning host he's been brought up way too much here, but he had some way to feel bad for Lane Kiffin because he had to leave his team, thought he should have been able to coach, complete arrogance. But if you're allowed to do that, then you can start that interview process as soon as you're eliminated or you win a national title. Then everybody can enter the transfer portal that wants to enter the transfer portal. They can get enrolled in their new school. They can get, things up and going. And now all of a sudden, the calendar's not the issue.
Another one from Smash the Numbers. Yeah, San Diego State did make the final game 2 years ago. FAU got to the Final Four. My point is not, I want those conferences represented. And San Diego State did not win their league that year. FAU did win their league. I want those teams represented. I think the MAC, Mountain West, Conference USA should be able to have that seed. Again, do I think they can win the national championship? No, I do not. But can they have a story that keeps their fans engaged in a way that still feeds a greater cause for the college football? Yes, absolutely. I know we disagree there, but I think there are ways to and you see now in basketball the creation of teams like San Diego State, Gonzaga, FAU,
how's that working
Dayton.
out for Gonzaga?
Well,
yeah. Ran into a buzzsaw called the Wolverines.
That's right. Bring back the BCS. Picking and choosing is silly. I don't know if it's a BCS, but I don't totally disagree. Like there's, I don't think the committee is right. I don't think the BCS was exactly right either. Because remember, that took into it was partly AP poll and coaches poll.
Yeah. We're getting into an off-season conversation here.
Okay,
in regards
fine.
to what needs to actually happen because. I'll just give you a little teaser. We'll talk about it sometime in the offseason, but get rid of the Big Ten, or if you want to make it a division of the college football playoffs, same thing with the SEC. You've got 4 power conferences right now. You've got the ability within those conferences and divisions to basically have an NFL model.
Yep.
You got an AFC, you got an NFC, divide them up however you want. The top teams play in the college football playoffs, and it's done by record.
Yep.
We can again.
We will
discuss this.
We have 9 months
in the offseason. Yeah.
Wow. Hello to Scott. Good afternoon.
Getting that time.
Looking forward to some improvement for 2026. 8 home games. Yep, that will be a key component to all of this. When will they wake up when an unranked team makes the playoff? Maybe Sunday. Going to be a lot of fun. So. And there was one other one in here. I just wanted to make sure. I don't know where it's at, but thankful for everybody for tuning in. We got through it a little bit there.
Yeah. I think
next week we'll talk a little bit bowl matchup, figure out what's going to happen. Vandy, Texas, we'll see.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe
it's going to be fun no matter what it is.
And we'll break down the Georgia Duke playoff game matchup.
Yes, it'll be warm.
For Jon, I'm Brian. Always appreciate you all coming out. And we will see you next Tuesday. We'll be back with another stream here on the Michigan Athletics YouTube feed. And we'll have 2 more each of the next 2 Tuesdays. Then we'll have a little bit of break for the bowl, the holidays, all of that. So for Jon, I'm Brian. Thanks to our crew. We'll talk to you next week.